Hello everyone and welcome to today's episode of the Arbor Farm. Thank you for taking the time to join us. I'd like to show you how you can take your end of the season green tomatoes and help them to ripen nicely without rotting. Let's get started. Chances are at the end of the season when you've grown tomatoes, you'll at one time or another have some very green tomatoes that need to be brought inside. Maybe it's because you're expecting your first frost of the fall, the autumn season, or maybe you're just ready to clean out your garden and get rid of all of the plants, but you don't want to throw away the green tomatoes that are left. And there are two ways that you can ripen those and help them to turn the appropriate color if you don't want to use them while they're still green. Now I should point out that there are some great recipes out there with green tomatoes and things that you can do with those. So if you've decided for sure that you don't want to use your green tomatoes, let's find out how to ripen them and get them to be the nice red color or the golden color or whatever color they should be in order for them to be able to be delicious and ready to be used in the weeks and the months ahead. As I mentioned, there's two primary ways that you can help to ripen your tomatoes. I've sorted them out here. These are our last harvest from our garden, and the yellow ones are an heirloom variety, so they are ripe or very close to ripe, as well as the red. So I don't think I need to do anything with those. They are ready to be used. You will notice that I have a couple here that still have a little bit of green left on them, and I can just place those in a sunny window, and in a couple of days they will be fully ripe and ready to be used. So nothing to do with this pile. But here are my green ones that are left. And if you're like us, you'll like to use garden ripe tomatoes or garden grown tomatoes compared to the tomatoes that you purchase in the store. They are tasty and delicious. So it's hard to throw those away. Even though it's the end of the season, there's still a lot of flavor there that begs to be enjoyed. So the easiest method to use to ripen green tomatoes is simply to wash them, take them inside, and put them in a sunny windowsill. That's the simplest method. And over the days and the weeks, they will get ripe, and you can enjoy them as they ripen. As I mentioned, there is an alternative method that can be used too to help ripen green tomatoes, and this method is actually preferred. It is one that my grandma taught me years ago, and she was a farmer and her husband was a farmer, and it works really well for saving those green tomatoes. Especially works well if you have a tomato that is, say, super green and you think, oh my, how am I ever gonna ripen that? So it especially works well for that. What you need is some paper. Newspaper works well, or we have this brown packaging paper, and either of those work fine. What you're gonna do is you're gonna wrap your tomato in the paper and then store it in a place that does not get below freezing in the winter. The garage is a good place. A barn is a good place. Some place that does not go below freezing, but stays somewhat cool because you don't want them to rot. So I'm going to show you how to wrap them, and then we can go from there. Alright, here's what you're going to do when you're wrapping your green tomatoes to help them ripen. Just make sure that the tomato is nice and clean, free of debris, and that it's ready to go. And you can put that in the paper and you're just going to wrap it up in the paper until it's fully covered. Then we just fold it so that the folded side is down, and that works well. I'm gonna do a few more here. I'm removing the stem and any of the other leaves and so forth that are on it so that it doesn't make it rot. We want it to be clean as possible and as dry as possible, and then we go ahead and wrap it in the paper. And these are just cherry tomatoes that I'm doing now, but you can do it for your great big beefsteak tomatoes or your Roma tomatoes. We've tried it with several varieties and it works really well. We have a few more here, just continuing to wrap my nice clean tomatoes that are green that I want to ripen. And the reason that this works is because the fruit, the tomatoes, release a gas, and as it releases the gas, by trapping it in the paper, then it creates an environment where the tomato ripens more rapidly. So wrapping them in paper works really well. Now that I have my tomatoes wrapped, I can just go ahead and move them to a nice cool, dry location. We have an unheated garage, and we just place them on a sheet of newspaper wrapped right on the garage floor. And there's nothing like pulling out a freshly ripened cherry tomato a couple weeks or a couple months from now when the snow starts to fly, and just enjoy some garden fresh produce. It's nothing like that. It's so delicious and so refreshing. You'll want to keep an eye on your tomatoes after you have stored them and make sure that they don't get wet, that they don't start to rot. If they get wet, they will rot. And if you leave them too long, they potentially can rot as well. And you don't want that to happen. You want to be able to enjoy them for the weeks and the months ahead. So we hope that that tip is helpful. Make sure that you check on them. Thank you for joining us for today's episode. We like to produce content that is helpful to you. So if you found this content helpful, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel so that you can receive notifications as to when the next content is posted. And as always, if you have a question, please put that in the comments below and we'll be happy to respond. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.